Hello, everyone. This is Mike Stramaglio with the Next Week's Life podcast. And I have some great friends with me that are going to spend about an hour with me and with you. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. So if you don't mind, I'm going to introduce Kevin and Les. I think you know them both. So, hey, Kevin and Les, do me a favor, introduce
Yep.
yourselves, introduce your dealership. And before we get going, if it wasn't for these two guys, I wouldn't have a podcast and I wouldn't be having all this fun. So
Excellent.
before we begin, thank you for pushing me this way. I'm having a blast. So Kevin, how about we turn it over to you
Yeah.
and give us a little bit of background about what you've been doing?
Well, not only am I the brains, but I'm the good looks of UTEC. So, Kevin Van Candle, owner of UTEC, and we together, Les
Yep.
and I host the Les Kevin
More
Tech
Tech.
podcast.
Yeah. Let's Kevin more tech at
Yep, that's what we want.
utechit.com. So
Yeah,
it,
and by the way, great guys, great podcast, and this is the first time I've ever done a crossover kind of podcast. So
yeah.
thanks, guys. I appreciate you helping me do this. So a couple of quick questions. My daughter was up your way, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, and
Absolutely.
you guys inserted her into your pro-am, and she caddied, I believe, for Mike Marusik. So tell me how all that happened, and how did Mike play?
Oh boy.
Well, I would say that we're proud partners with Rocket Mortgage Classic here in Detroit, and this is its fourth year for the golf
year,
event, and it's a wonderful tournament backed by Rocket Mortgage.
Right.
And we've participated in the Pro-Am. We were the official document company for the tournament.
Yes.
And we played in the Pro-Am. So this year we thought, let's drag out a couple of our favorites. And so we convinced Mike Marusik to come. We just said it was a golf tournament. I don't think he had an idea what he was getting into. Otherwise, he never would have come. But I said, let's get some classy caddies. So Jenna was kind enough to
Yes.
agree to be a caddy. Now, Seletsky was afraid. Seletsky said, we had him lined up, but he backed out because he said, I'd have to carry golf bags and I'd have to walk 18 holes. He didn't know what to do with himself. So we were probably better for it by not having him included. But we got Jenna. And an amazing part of the story was she's in Louisville trying to fly up here the night before, and her flight gets, postponed, canceled?
It kept getting postponed, and then finally she's at the point, and if they do it once more, there's no way I'm going to get there.
Right.
So being a resourceful person from the document imaging industry, what did she do?
She jumped in her car and drive. We called her to check in on her, and she says, I'll be there in 2 hours. I'm driving up.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy Toledo. So she,
It's commitment.
great effort on her part, and I think that the tournament wouldn't have been the tournament. It wouldn't have been a Pro-Am without her.
Yeah, so she.
Well,
I was going to say she caddied for Marusik, which is correct. Yeah, and Marusik, I'll let Kevin explain how that golf game unfolded in its entirety, but she was very instrumental for his game, coming together with that call for the Bloody Mary in the fourth. So
Well, we promised Mike we wouldn't say anything about him that we didn't say to him. So this is free shots at him here.
I opened the door.
That's
I
right.
opened the door for you.
That's right. Next week we will not be a Sharp dealership.
Right.
So if there's a manufacturer listening out there, we're taking calls because Mike will cancel us.
Yeah.
But so Jenna caddied for him, and she
Yeah.
thought she'd be caddying 18. But if anybody's been with Mike, it turned out to be about a 36 hole round for her, the walking that she did back and forth. But we had a great time. Mike was a wonderful sport, and
Fantastic.
I think it was the first time this year he'd swung a golf club. So other than the 10 minutes he had on the range, we threw him right into live fire, and away he went. But so we were with 4 folks, and then we had a pro. So we had Brendan Steele was our first pro for 9 holes, and then Chad Ramey, who's a rookie on the tour, was our pro for the second 9. Yeah. And it was a long day. It was brutal. It was very humid in Michigan. It was warm, and it was a 6-hour round. So anybody that had to carry bags for 6 hours and walk around, it was Herculean.
So, hey, Mike, now, in full disclosure, I'm not a golfer, right? I'm more comfortable in a bowling alley, a pitcher of beer or something like that. So there's a lot of pomp and circumstance in this sport. So the tournament starts out, and so you got a crowd of people watching. And And one of the foursome Kevin had mentioned is a local news celebrity here. So there's a lot of people. And then you got the guy announcing the name, at the beginning. So, Kevin, you want to tell him how Mike was, because I mean, there's people are staring at you, right? And so he said,
Well, Mike's first two shots were straight. Now, whether they left the ground or not, it depends on your point of view. But the first two shots were straight. The third shot was we were laughing afterwards, enjoying a cold drink that night. The third shot was not quite as straight, and it went like this way, a little hosel rocket that went into the crowd, and the volunteers, their eyes went like this as they were trying to avoid this ball coming at head height right at them, and it ricocheted around the concessionaire tent and hospitality tents. And at that point, I think we decided the best thing we could do for our team was to get Bloody Marys for everybody to calm the nerves. And from there, it was a completely different story.
After that, it was fine coaching from the caddies, right? And it was fine. The suppliers, like myself, who were actually running to get the drinks, and then the drink providers. The game smoothed out, and I think everything else, turned out fine. But what Mike told me that I thought was kind of surprising, he said, was that first hole when he went to put the tee in, because there's all these people staring at you. He goes, I'm nervous. He's like, why am I nervous? Why be nervous? We're golfing. It's supposed to be fun.
I'm sure a lot of folks have done something like this before, where you play in a pro-am, and they'll appreciate that we are the AM and AM, and so you do have these pros, but there are crowds, and there's galleries there. But it is a very humbling experience, and not that any of these people ever know you or ever see you again. But it's still humbling when you get up there and very nervous to think, I got to hit a golf ball straight. And, you want to try to play like the pros, and it's impossible.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
so I have one question. When you say he hit it straight, did he get it straight and past the ladies' tees?
Thankfully, we got past the lady tees. That's why we were able to go on and play 17 more holes. But I think it would have been a problem had we not. So yes, he did get it past the ladies' tees. And Mike does remind us that there were many holes on after we got off that first rocky start that he did contribute to the team. He had some wonderful golf shots. As a matter of fact, I think he parred the par 5 by himself when we were all in trouble, and he even did better than a rookie pro. And we used his ball for that score in that hole. So.
Right. Yeah.
So much we like to pick on him, he did contribute.
So
how
this
do you
is
think? Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
yeah, this is where you're basically protecting your incoming inventory and supply chain by being nice at the end.
Correct. We need inventory. I want to make sure that it's on the ship and that our ship didn't take a left when it should have taken a right.
Right.
But no,
Yeah,
we had a good time, and funny story, Mike. After that is that this was on Wednesday, and unbeknownst to us, during the round on hole number 14, the only water hole on the course. I won't say that Maruzic hit 2 balls in the water, but
No, don't.
if there was a second one, I might have been fishing it out because it was right by the green. It was where you could see the ball right there. And as I'm fishing it out, I'm bending over and using my putter to fish this out. The Detroit Free Press snaps a picture, and I didn't know it at the time, but I get this text with a photo on there that was in the Free Press, and it says local amateur fishing his golf ball out of the pond, and my picture. Then my phone starts buzzing from buddies like, "Hey, did you play in the pro-am?" Like, that's not my ball. I was doing it for somebody else, and it's sure. So.
Well, let's officially make that point that you were fishing Mike Marusic's ball out of the water, and the Detroit Free Press might have been a little fake news on that one.
Yes, definitely, definitely fake news. But
are we going to be selling Murata next week?
All right. So, how long have you? A couple of quick questions about this. Great tournament, great charity. So, how long have you been hosting it or been a part of it?
This is the 4th year, and we've been part of it all 4 years. So we got in on an initial thing, and it's important to Detroit. Detroit's as a city's trying to make a comeback, has been making a comeback. There's been an interruption with COVID, obviously, but there are a lot of good things going on down there, and the folks at Rocket Mortgage are deeply invested down there in the city of Detroit, and this has been a flagship account that they've wanted to
Oh, yeah.
bring in. And they've done a great job with the tournaments, well received. The pros like it. The PGA's real excited with it. So we were happy to be a part of it.
Right.
And as Les alluded to, we had Rhonda Walker from Channel 4. She was the top-rated local newscaster. She was a part of it, and her husband's a member at the club. And it was just a great day. We had David Snodgrass from Lake Trust Credit Union.
Great client of ours.
He was out there, and this is the second year he'd done it with us, and it was just a wonderful day. Wonderful event. Had clients out. Just a great showcase.
And our clients were very appreciative. Very appreciative.
And the money you raise goes to who?
Well, there's a variety of charities that are engaged, along with the PGA.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
so-
it's done through the Rocket Giving Fund, is what they call there, and the emphasis this year was on bridging the digital divide. And there's so many houses in Detroit and residences there without digital, any type of internet or digital technology. So they are working immensely to try to get that brought up.
Yeah,
to speed.
it's estimated about 30 to 40% of the students in the Detroit public school system do not have access to broadband, and so it's a challenge when you're when you're in an area, you're rebounding, and something as critical as internet access is not available. So they're putting a lot of focus to that. And just as a non-golfer, Kevin, this event, I remember 6-7 years ago when they started talking about it, and the thought of the PGA playing inside, because this is inside the city, this course, Detroit Golf Club, and I believe, and so Mike Tirico was the host, and fabulous local event because it brings in so much revenue, so much additional income, into the city. But he had mentioned that there's only one other golf championship or PGA championship that's within a city. Isn't that correct, Kevin? Wasn't it Atlanta? I think,
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, Tirico was mentioning, because everyone else is in a golf course that's outside a city or in a suburb. But so this thing, when it was first announced, was, it was kind of skeptical. But, when it launched 4 years ago, it's just been a fantastic, because everything in the city just brightens up. All the sports stars and the people come into the town, and it just benefits everyone in the community.
And we did have to take a little detour getting to the course, and the part of the city that hasn't rebounded yet. Jenna got to see, and it was fun to see her eyes at some of this.
Not exactly Scottsdale, huh, Toto?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So,
Well, I could tell you guys, she had a blast. She thinks the world of you guys and everything you're doing there. She was happy to caddy for Mike, and she even told me the one shot that she got to hit, she actually, I think, put it on the green. So she was thrilled about that.
Yeah. So check this out. So we're on our 6th hour of golfing, and you're just dripping, and you're tired, and it's just like get me home. And so we on the 18th, I said, let's have all our caddies hit a golf ball, because they've been working hard all day out there doing that. And Christine's one of our coworkers, and she's a big time golfer. And she gets out and she misses the green, and she's sore and stiff. Jack, who was caddying for David, gets in, and he's a single digit handicap. He gets up and he misses the green, and he complained about how stiff he is. And Jenna, she gets up with a big smile, and she whacks it right up there on the green, and we play her ball. Again, the pro was off the green here in this thing, and we ended up using Jenna's ball for the hole. So it was a lot of fun, and unbelievable for her to get out.
That's
and
my
do that.
girl. That's my girl.
Yeah,
I'm proud of her.
Yeah.
So let's kind of swing around a little bit. How did you two guys meet?
ooh, wow, Kev, that's a couple of decades ago.
It goes back a long time. Actually, it goes back to my days at DLL. I was a leasing rep for Delaga Loudon,
Okay.
and Les was a customer, and Les was working for Rico at the time.
Yeah, I was a major account sales rep, and our office here, we were a huge proponent of RMAP, which was at the Rico Major Account Program, and DLL was our financing arm. So virtually every major account transaction that we did at that time. We had him in the seat next to us.
So we'd work closely there, and then we competed against each other. Les was promoted a couple times, and Les went on to run the Rico branch here for state of Michigan, about $130 million entity in itself, and 100 sales reps you had under your command at one point?
Absolutely. Had 10 sales teams, and then you had your additional specialists and different verticals that we were attacking. So we had a pretty significant footprint here in Michigan.
And then COVID
Well,
hit,
yeah.
and you've talked to many dealers. You know this, that there's a glut of talent. I mean, you can't find any talent out there. There's no good people to work for your dealership, and Les is testament to that. There's no good people to work for your dealership.
So this is why we hang out. He finally met the only smart ass that's a bigger smart ass than him.
I think I just broke a rib. That's funny. Yeah, but the good news is, Kevin, I remember when Les way back. I remember those days. So the long story short is, if I understand Kevin's comment correctly, you've sucked for decades.
Yes, that's yep. So here's the good part, though. Even when we were partnering or competing, against each other, after 5 o'clock, we could still go out and have a beer. So.
I'm still not sure if it was better to have him competing against me or working for me.
Well, time is telling on that one.
I mean, you guys have had a really fantastic journey. I mean, DLL, a great company.
Yeah.
Obviously, you come together, driving the market together. And, you fast forward, did you ever imagine that the business would be where it is today? And how are you making decisions like to create your own podcast, or how are you making these decisions, and are they being successful for you, like IT services?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's obviously a complete 180 from where we started years ago. So,
Right.
Kevin, how are you strategically making these decisions?
I'm going out and getting good talent like Les. And now, in all honesty, no. Les had called and said, "Hey, I'm tired of. I've worked for a manufacturer. I'm tired of all the hassles that come working for a big manufacturer, big corporation. Decisions are made out of state that you don't have the flexibility, that they're not always in the best. And you get why they got to do it, right? You got to have some guardrails around stuff. But he said, "Hey, I need to take some time off. I'm working on a project, and I'm going to call you after the holidays." And so he called and he said, "Hey, I want to be a part of a team. I want to put my imprint on something. I want to get back to being able to make decisions that are in best interest of the customer. Building solutions that meet their needs,
Right.
but being able to do it and being able to support it too. It's one thing to sell something, but it's another thing to be able to support it and carry it out. And knowing Les, knowing what he can and can't do, I jumped at that chance in a heartbeat, and to let him come on, and he's putting his imprint on it, and he's got the runway to make the decisions, and we knew that this is where we get to eventually, and so he's running all our sales for us. He's making, it's his program to run. I just got to stay out of the way. I'll just screw it up if I get in the way. So he gets and Les has said it, and I think it's true, is he's a visionary guy. He can look around the corner, see what's coming next, understanding that we've got to have these things in place, and we're building it out. We're still small potatoes.
Yeah.
We're a small little dealership, and the outskirts of Detroit doing what we want, but trying to create a wonderful customer experience, and that's what Les believes in. That's what I believe in, is that we're nothing if we don't create a great customer experience. Right. And we may not be equipped to go take down GM, although we have cracked GM, right?
We have. We're
but
there.
But we got to know who we are, know the customers that we're really good at servicing, and finding partners that want a partnership and that want that type of experience. And that's what we're going for.
So Mike, when add a little bit to that. You remember the days when it was analog, right? Service tech would come in, lay out the big sheet, start tearing apart the machines. 3 hours later, so on and so forth. And as we move, this equipment just keeps getting better and better. And that right now, today, the opportunity for our industry is greater than it was on the shift from analog to digital. And, all three of us lived that, right? And we saw the explosion. We saw the MFP business just explode through the 90s and the early 2000s. But the opportunity today is greater. And it's greater for a couple of different reasons. Number one, the amount of information that's moving in this world right now it increases by multiples almost daily. And now that information has to be used by businesses because that's what businesses do. Businesses consume things and then they output. And whatever they CPA outputs their accounting services, a manufacturer outputs their widgets, whatever. So the businesses are always going to need to consume, and they're always going to need to do it better so that they can survive and grow. Our opportunity with our technology just facilitates that consumption and growth. So today, we've got a brighter future today than we had in the 90s, and it's fantastic to be in this channel right now, and it's fantastic to be a part of it. And it's a great place, especially for a young person, that wants to grow into an industry and, learn the basics of business development, negotiation, just interaction, communication, presentation. There's never been a better time. It's absolutely.
Now,
Well,
and
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say that in talking with Mike when he was in town, I had him give a presentation to our team, and we talked because I wanted our team to hear what Sharp's doing, and we talk about opportunity right now with the information and the output and capturing that and moving documents and information around the office. But we are blessed as a Sharp dealer right now to have an unbelievable opportunity over everybody else. And I said, I don't know who's going to do it, if anybody will do it, but if they go back and they cover what's happened during COVID and how manufacturers responded to this and how they positioned themselves, Mike's going to be a legend. They're going to write books, and we're going to date ourselves. They're going to make DVDs about him and VHS tapes about how he's handled this and his leadership team at Sharp, and we're grateful for that because they really have handled this. And we tell reps, you better go get it right now because we've got there's a window right now that you can go take market share and really make this thing fly.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? First of all, I agree with you. Mike Marusik he's shined like pretty much no one else that I'm aware of in the business right now. And Sharp has done a fabulous job. So you're right to say that. But the thing that really gets me excited is to hear both of you guys talking about the opportunity and the growth, the challenge and the growth opportunity that's presented itself today. The window is right now. You're right. But the excitement for the future is growing. And I love when you guys talk about the fact that, we need young people and it's hard to find young people. But if you're positive and you're doing the things that you're saying you're doing, you're going to attract those young people.
Well,
Has that been?
I can tell you, I got 4 or 5 candidates right now that I'm trying to manufacture an opening for. So there's plenty of young people out there. It's so I read a lot. I have a lot of fun with reading and what have you. But I've got a book, and you've probably heard it, How to Raise Yourself from Failure to Success in Selling. Have you ever heard that book?
Yes.
Written by a guy named Frank Bettger. Started
Yes.
sales in 1907, and he wrote it in 1926. And if you read it, you'd think you were looking at a book for 2022. It's all about, hey, going out, making the calls, meeting the right people. The principles are the same. And we're 100 years removed, from that book, and you can go read it. But the opportunity for new people. So you take a look at the equipment, for example, on the technical side. We no longer lay out a sheet and work for 3 hours on a machine, right? It's now a lot modular. It's quicker. It's faster. So you don't really need as many screwdriver technicians per se as you may have 10, 15, 20 years ago. However, what does that free them up? Now you have a resource that can be inside of a client site that now understands networks. It now understands productivity tools. And so they're now a resource that you can deploy out in the field, right? That's paid for via the click.
Yeah.
There's no other industry, Mike, that can do that in IT. When you go to a standard IT vendor or a standard MPS, they need to sell that IT contract, and they need to sell those IT maintenance contracts in order to support their growth. We've got an engine called a click that allows us, to grow that side of the business. And that's
That
very unique.
that's pretty brilliant. That's pretty interesting. I hadn't heard that before.
I had
That's a great
whispered that in his
perspective.
ear on the way up here.
Yeah, he tells me these stuff. He writes notes under the table and says, say this.
Say this. Take notes.
Right.
So one of the biggest challenges that I keep hearing over and over again, besides supply chain, and I want to keep coming back to the people thing, is the difficulty to find and hire good people. You guys, and your attitude and the way you've just presented it to me, if you're pushing that out on new candidates, you're going to find success, right? One of the things that
Absolutely.
I find dealers who are some dealers, I should say, they're believing, clicks are down, you can't find good people,
Right.
and they're believing their own,
Right.
their own shtick.
Right.
So if you're a young person and you want to go to work for a guy that's, all you talks about it. So I don't get it. So you guys basically have created a culture that works for you.
Yeah.
And the byproduct of that is your business is up. So
It
post
is.
pandemic,
So
where are you?
we'll just take a look at our IT services. Um, when we finished up 2021, we were up about 80% over 2020, right? And projections this year, while it's not going to be that significant of a jump, it's not going to double like it did last year, but we're still going to be up. The MFP business, I don't know the actual data points from 3 or 4 years ago, but I know right now what we have booked and what we have set to deliver through the end of the year is going to put us on par with last year. And what we've got forecasted and projected is going to take us significantly over last year's achievement. So business is up, curve is proper.
Phenomenal.
You talk about positivity, Mike, and it was interesting. We've had we did some changes in the office, and Les was now running all of our sales, and we had right before the 4th of July, we had a little golf outing. We took some of the reps out, and we went to the club there, and we golfed, and brought them back to the house. And my wife Carolyn met Les a couple times, but she never spent a lot of time around him. And so as the night goes along, we're sitting around the fire, and we had the wives and reps and folks there, and we're talking. And I don't know if it was the 18th beer you had or not, but Les starts espousing on his positivity and what he sees. And it was really funny to see all the people there just lean in. They're on the edge of their seats. They're listening to Les. And I had asked my son and daughter to come just sit down, be by the fire, and meet the people. And Grace brought her boyfriend down. And at the end of the night, we're cleaning up and before heading to bed. And my daughter, who just graduated from University of Michigan, she had a job lined up. She's moving to Chicago. She's going to be a nurse. She goes, Dad, I think I want to work for Les.
Yeah.
I said, well, no, you're too far down the road. You're going to go be a nurse. You know what I mean? But
And I'm saying, take a territory. Let's go.
But my son's fired up. And he's going to be a junior at University of Dayton.
Yeah.
And Grant's like, Dad, I want to work for Les.
Yeah.
And Grace is like, I want to work for Les. And Carolyn, that night as we're laying in bed, she goes, I couldn't feel better about our company and where we are right now, having a guy like him on board and knowing that he's leading the charge. And you saw it in the reps, and I heard it from the people that, hey, I talked to Jeremy, and he was out there, and Jeremy's fired up.
Yeah.
It's great to see he's so positive. I mean, do you have bad days?
I had 18 beers, but the 3 people he mentioned had 19 or 20, so that's kind of why they were trying to.
But that's what we got in Les. He's always optimistic. He's always positive, and I think we talk about the kids today aren't like we were or the ones before before them, but they respond so well to him, and he has a way of teaching and coaching that it was different than what I had. And I was always grateful for Pat Collins was my first sales manager, and I learned a lot from him, and I owe him a lot for teaching us how to sell value. And it wasn't about price; it was about value. But Les is in there, and these guys just respond to him. Like it's great.
It's awfully nice you're saying that, and the check's in the mail. But Mike, I just got to take you back. I just got to take you back to a few months back, right? When you and me were chatting, and we let's talk about take a look at today in media. What do you see today? Sound bites are on cable. Websites are snippet. Newspapers and magazines, they're thin. What's the only media right now where you can dive in and have a deep discussion about something that's meaningful and important to them, and actually own it and distribute it, and that's a podcast. And you were like, okay, I can kind of see this, and and then you got involved, right? And what's your experience, and what are your guests' experience with your podcast?
Well, that's a great question, and I appreciate, like I said right from the beginning of this podcast, both of you brought this to me. I'm an old war horse, right? So, the old saying about you can't train a dog, old dog, or whatever that saying is. But you know what? I'm having fun.
Yeah,
You opened up my eyes to the possibilities of these podcasts. And frankly, even from ECS when we were having fun back at ECS.
yeah,
But I've had more great experiences. I have to admit, there's a learning process. You
yeah.
just can't sit in front of a mic and expect that you're going to come out sounding reasonable. So it took
Well,
it
you
took a
sound
few.
reasonable. We don't.
That's why we have Grant. He makes us sound smart.
Well, Grant, I got to tell you, you got a home run in Grant. So, but the experience has been awesome. I have learned so much about my own need to improve certain
Mm-hmm.
areas of my thought processes and my actions or my strategies. It helped me with ECS and so on. But the guests that we've had on, and you put them in an environment like this, like we're talking right now,
Yeah, yeah.
and I mean, you're learning so much every single time you do
Right,
this, and
right.
also you're seeing a fact pattern. When
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with 4 or 5, 6 different guests in a row, and they're saying 2 or 3 of the same things,
Mm-hmm.
and hiring people, supply chain, or whatever it might be, you're seeing these fact patterns, and you're listening to their answers.
Yeah,
And like you just talked about Mike Marusik. Well, that's a different, basically follow through than some of the other people or other companies, and you learn from it. So I'm having fun. I think the guests are enjoying it.
mm-hmm.
I've learned quite a bit from Grant on how to make sure that we're getting to the right points and so on. But the
Mm-hmm.
best part of it is, I think it has the opportunity anyway, if we
Mm-hmm.
continue to do it properly, to build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my biggest concerns for the new generation and the new business is that we lose that handshake relationship
Right.
building capability, either because people weren't on the road or whatever. And hopefully we're getting back to it. But younger people need never to forget the importance of this,
Right,
right?
right.
And having some really good
Mm-hmm.
conversations and being smart about it and helping people. So I am very grateful, that
Yeah,
you guys guided me to this. It's been a wonderful experience. I've had nothing but great content and great feedback, from people. And I think it's good for the industry.
yeah.
So, and I would also say, I didn't necessarily seek other podcasts. Some
Right.
people would send them. Now I actually have a list of
Yeah,
people I don't want to miss,
yeah. The
right?
average
Like,
the average podcast listener has 7 podcasts that they program right now. That number didn't exist 2 years ago. It's
wow.
got yeah, so you're at 7, right? So if you go back and take a look at who you're listening to and who you can't miss, you're probably in that neighborhood plus or minus 7.
I would say probably 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
And by the way, the other thing you learn is, don't listen to them.
Hmm.
Don't. That's not a good podcast.
Now, hey,
So,
Mike,
Yeah. Yes.
I'll tell you, Mike, on the Les Kevin More Tech podcast,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here drinking water, but we
Right.
have bourbon. We have
Yeah.
all our guests. We have bourbon here, so I'm not sure what's happened if Grant forgot to leave it out, but I would encourage
Dude,
you.
you walked clean past it, which was the first time I've ever seen that happen before, man.
I would encourage you to serve bourbon to your guests.
Yes.
Mike's
That's why-
cheaping out
that's
on us
why I
here. What's
drink-
going on?
That's why I drink vodka.
That's funny.
But so a couple of quick questions before we
Yeah.
kind of wind down. Who, if I asked you, I'll start with Les.
Yeah.
Who would you, and if you can't answer it, who is your greatest mentor when you look back on your career and made you who you are today, which is a pretty remarkable person?
Yeah. So,
Short-
so I've had three significant individuals. Okay. So one of them was when I got my start in the business. And I've said this plenty of times to people. I was too young to realize what a crappy job I had. Seriously, I had two products to sell. One was a fax L777, and an L700. One sold for $19.95. That included 2 meg upgrade cartridge. And the other one sold for $24.99, and I had a $28,000 a month quota. And I was just, but the reason that was an important one for me, because that's the one that taught me this part of the game. And that, and I created a formula that I use today personally, and I coach our young guys on it. And so that was that aspect. The second aspect, individual, is I had posted some decent numbers and got, moved up and got into production. And at the time, the products were CLC 100s, 200s, and 500s. And with the fiery controller, I mean, it was a 6-figure deal. You'd laugh today to realize for $125,000, you could buy a 5-page a minute color device that printed on one side. And we used to have to give a bottle of Windex because when they did the transparency, there was so much oil, right? We had to wipe the oil out. But that taught me the concept of questioning, understanding process, business, and then being able to ask for, $125,000 because that was only decided by senior level at that point. There's a difference between the 1999 and, $125,000. And then the third one is a mutual acquaintance of ours, and he really taught me management and leadership and basically process and holding reps accountable and holding ourselves accountable to the reps, right? And so those are the three, and it's different aspects in the career, the hustle, strategy, and then leadership. For the third, and he's a mutual friend of ours, and he's very successful in this business today, right now.
And if we said his name, Bill Batro, he'd get a big head, so we won't say.
Yeah,
his
so
name.
we don't want Bill to get his all ego blown out and all that other stuff.
All right,
but,
all right.
Well,
I know who you're talking about. So how about you, Kevin?
Well, it's funny. Like I said, we didn't realize how bad of a job we had. I always wanted to be a State Farm agent. My grandfather was a State Farm agent for 33 years, and I absolutely admired that guy and loved him, and I wanted to be like him. And I had another friend as I graduated college. He just said, if you want to get into sales, go sell Yellow Page ads or employment services or copiers and faxes. And I said, too good for that. Yeah. And so I ended up in Detroit, and I'm selling copiers and faxes. And
that's a pinnacle, by the way.
That's and my father-in-law just said, hey, it's a boot camp of sales, right? You're going to learn it. You're going to do your 2-year duty, and then you get on to doing bigger and better things. But Pat Collins, my first sales manager, and he taught us how to sell value, and I really appreciate that. After a few years of doing that, I decided I got into the leasing business, and that was something I thought was going to be kind of neat. You travel around a little bit. I wanted to change the pace, but I was still in the industry. But that gave me a platform to go meet a ton of wonderful guys that had their dealerships already. And I saw Steve Ornder down at Indy Office Solutions, and I saw Les's old boss, Tom Nicosia at Selective. It was a Rico thing, and Bill was there. And those guys were really wonderful guys. I thought, man, if I could do something like that, that'd be really cool. And that, there's a dream there to have your own business, and they helped fuel that. And we took the jump and went out and bought this little dealership. And then as I got involved with it, Chip Maselli had been a friend. He never give me any leasing business, but he'd always take my calls, and we'd always met. And Chip said, "Hey, come on out, and you got to be a part of this group, this American Co-op group." And I always respected Chip, and so I joined that group. And from leaning on Chip's experiences, hey, what do you think about this? And should I zig here or zag? And so I'm going to name a bunch of guys, so bear with me here. But Chip was wonderful. But no, you get into a group like that, and then you saw the power of the first after the first meeting there, the morning we take a break, and Jeff Gal's already down there trying to buy me, and in the coffee shop. But you got to listen to Jeff talk about business, and even though he became a competitor against us, we were so small that we weren't even on the radar to be a competitor for him. But Jeff shared his wisdom. He had no problem sharing his wisdom with anybody he competed with in the group. And you know Jeff, he's a legend. He has a lot of great ideas. And then you got to see guys like John Ekstrom, Bill Tracia, Joe Reeves, Joe Blatchford. So we're still learning. I mean, we're still learning from these guys and trying to get better.
You know who else we're learning from? These young guys, right, that are out there knocking on the doors, finding the business. And they're feeding right back to us what's important at the ground level. I know it's not our mentors, but it's a fabulous experience because we're learning, right from what's happening at the street.
It's funny. You see a lot of guys, right? You've seen a lot of dealerships, and there's a lot of guys taking shortcuts and doing things the wrong way, and your competitors, and you get frustrated with them. But there are so many good guys, even if you compete against them, doing things the right way and have great dealerships. And most people in our business aren't afraid to share ideas. I mean, like, there's not really new ideas, right? We're just improving on the ones we steal and rob from each other and try to improve on them. But we meet so many neat people in our business, and that makes it fun.
I told Kevin I'm in charge of R&D. Anything I see is good, I rob it, and then I deploy it.
Well, you know what? You guys mentioned some great names. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Chip Maselli and certainly Ekstrom, and you mentioned Joe Blatchford. I mean, there's a really long list of, I think, people who are fantastic ambassadors for the community, the business, industry at large, and just as human beings. So, and I'm amazed at how some of these guys continue to challenge themselves to keep improving. And the same thing applies to you two. You guys this whole hour have been nothing but positive, nothing but fun, nothing but creative, and your business is growing in spite of some of the serious challenges that we've all faced. So it's an honor for me, actually, to spend time with you today, and frankly, all the time. And I will say, Les, at the next ECS conference,
Yep.
when Rick Taylor and Patricia and I are sitting on a couch, I'm going to have to be careful to not be overserved.
Yeah. Yes.
Even though it was Rick Taylor's birthday, which was a great
Yes.
excuse, but
That was a lot of fun. Mike,
We
that
had
was
a
a lot of
blast.
fun.
So basically, the final thing, one simple thing you would offer to the dealer community. Hey guys, you really need to focus on this the rest of this year for success. What advice would it be?
You want to go
One
with that
thing.
one?
You
I'll
go
go.
first.
All right, so here's one thing. Our opportunity is bigger now than it ever has been. Just understand that, and you literally, you'll wake up in the morning with your hair on fire.
Awesome. Kevin, how about you?
I would say join a podcast or start a podcast because people will just think you're a jackass. Now you can get on here and you can talk and you can remove all doubt. So now they'll know for 100%.
All right. So how did I do? I mean, I've only been doing this for 6 months because of you guys. How did I do?
All right, well, what are we giving him of our grade? You know,
Well,
feels like the
what can you-
Olympics.
How would we know? We host a terrible podcast ourselves, so we couldn't tell anybody if they were good or bad.
Mike, you're
Well,
fantastic. You know that. You're an ambassador for the industry. One of the things that
The
sets you
Godfather.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's right. But one of the things that sets you apart from a lot of the folks that are industry pundits, so to speak, is it's real easy to find out what's wrong and to hold broadcast and news and whatever about what's wrong. That's easy. It's a simple thing to do. Don't take a lot of brains. But you've always been a great ambassador to the industry, and and you bring that out in your podcast. Now, when I reported you, which was like 25 layers below down at that, but when you did come into town and you spoke, you got the same charismatic ability then that I remember as you do today. So you did fantastic, and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I mean that sincerely. That's probably one of the nicest things you could say about someone. So thank you. And I appreciate it. And guys, we'll see you, if not sooner, we'll see you at the summit in January. Correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You got it. See ya.